All right, welcome back to hour 2 of Inside the Birds live from Radio Row. It's Geoff Mosher, Andrew Pacheco. We're joined, of course, by Greg Cosell as well. We were having a great conversation that we're going to continue in a second. Hour 2 is brought to you by Sin City. We'll tell you more on that in a little bit. We had Brian Westbrook. We had Torrey Smith. We had the great Zach Berman from The Athletic. And as we say in this business, we are efforting a few more guests for you. We've seen Donovan McNabb. We're trying to get him to stop by. Mike Tannenbaum, former NFL GM, is in the area. Takeo Spikes has he has given me a verbal commitment.
He's given you a verbal commitment?
Now, it's been a long time since he had to do that. What did he go to Clemson, right?
No, he went to Auburn.
That's right, Auburn, of course.
Drafted, I believe, pick 13 maybe by the Cincinnati Bengals.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't there another defensive player from Auburn taken in the first round in the same draft? I thought there were almost 2 linebackers.
It's very possible, but I don't remember the exact year, but I know he was a first-round pick of the Bengals.
Definitely. And he only spent 1 year with the Eagles, but it was
great guy, by the way. I've known him for a long time.
Unbelievable guy. Yeah. So we're hoping he stops by at some point. And Jason Avant is in the building, so he'll come by and talk to us as well. So we got a lot for you on hour 2 here, but we're going to pick up a little bit where we left off. And Andrew, in what we call in the business a great tease, you were about to ask Greg a great question. Greg was about to answer it. And I told both of you to stop so that we can take a little break and come back for hour 2. So why don't you proceed?
So Greg was talking about, Jalen Hurts and having only thrown 22 passes.
Right.
And my question to you, Greg, as someone who watches the tape, since the injury, what have you seen any noticeable hindrance or alteration that Jalen Hurts has had to do when he's throwing the football with that shoulder injury?
Good question.
I don't know if I've seen something physically. I will say this. I will say that since the injury, and I don't know if it's because he's just not as comfortable, because we don't know the extent of it. Right. It had been downplayed from day one, and obviously it's been clear that was a little more serious than they let on. And, they don't have to let on really anything other than say whether, questionable, doubtful, whatever. They don't have to give you the details. But I will say this. One of the things I thought that Jalen Hurts had improved significantly on as this season progressed was the fact that he did not perceive pressure and break down as much as he had in the past, that he would stay in the pocket and deliver the football. And I thought that was a real positive step in his continued growth, because the running element, while it's very strong, should be more of a parachute, one of the last things you do, as opposed to, hey, let's drop back and run.
Right.
Okay. I thought since the injury, and again, I can't speak to what he feels. I thought he reverted back a few too many times into breaking down and sort of going into what I would describe as that superhero mode, where your feet get parallel and you kind of, do that he would revert back to that too often. And can he make plays doing that at times because he's a very good runner? Sure. But ultimately, you don't want your quarterback doing that. You want your quarterback executing the offense as designed, particularly when there are throws that are there.
Sure.
Interestingly, we had Dr. David Chow on with us, the former head athletic director for the Chargers for 17 years. He does all the video
I've seen
diagnosis now with SIC Central. I asked him that very same question, and he actually thinks that Jalen Hurts is, at this point, he didn't say 100%, but much healthier than, say, Patrick Mahomes.
I would say that's fair.
Nature of the injury, and he said there was nothing he felt, and he doesn't pretend to be a
right
tape watcher,
right.
But nothing from a medical standpoint, to answer your question, that he felt was overly favoring the shoulder.
And that's why I said I didn't see that either. He would know more about that part of it.
Right.
But then you get into the mental part.
Right.
That's the thing, which you can't speak to.
Absolutely. And now we have seen, I'd say, in the last 2 games where Jalen Hurts maybe has not been as aggressive as a runner. And some people are saying, well, it's because it hurts. No, it may not be that it hurts. It may more be that he does not want it to hit it again and then re-aggravate it or injure it, or he knows how he's been feeling playing with that. He wants to just be able to move the ball through the air, move the ball through his legs when he can, but not have to take unnecessary hits.
And the reality is, because of the nature of the Giants game and the 49ers game, he did not really have to throw the ball a whole lot. I mean, normally in the NFL, in a championship game, your quarterback doesn't complete 15 balls for 120 yards. That's normally not enough to win a championship game in the NFL. But because of the nature of that given game against the Niners, that was all that was necessary, and they ended up blowing them out.
Right.
Even against the Giants, ended up being a bit of a blowout, and the numbers weren't necessarily big, and they didn't have to be. Now, we're going to assume he's healthy, and I think we're going to assume, we may be wrong because you never know how a game plays out, that Jalen Hurts would have to be a bigger factor throwing the ball in the Super Bowl than he was in the championship game or the divisional playoff round.
Right.
Now, again, we don't know. You never know.
You want him to be able to do that, especially if you feel like you've got great advantages on the outside.
Right. And I think, look, we've talked tactically about how you have to defend the Eagles offense, and you're going to have to get a safety involved somewhere along the line. So there are going to be one-on-one matchups on the outside. And we saw in the second half of the season before he got hurt, when those matchups were there, they took those shots and they were pretty successful. I mean, you're never going to hit every single one because it's not a routine throw, but they were pretty successful hitting those deep balls.
What would you say is the base concept of the Steve Spagnuolo defense this year? Like the way when we talk about Gannon, we talk about a quarter system,
right?
Fangio style modified defense. How would you characterize Spagnuolo?
Well, prior to this year, I would have said that there were three things you could expect from Steve Spagnuolo. You could expect man coverage, cover two, and pressure, depending on, obviously situations.
Sure.
I think this year he's become a little more multiple in what he does. Now, we don't know the specific answer to why. It could be just his growth, maybe, because I know the one thing I know about Spags is he studies other defensive coaches in the league. And it's very possible he say, hey, I want to now incorporate this. I want to integrate this. It could be because of injuries. It could be because he's playing, rookies in the secondary. So we don't know the answer, but he's done more things. It hasn't been, it's Steve Spagnuolo. This is what you're getting, for sure.
Right.
And
is this the first year that you've noticed that he's does things differently than
more so? Yes.
That's good. That shows evolution.
Yes. And I actually spoke to and I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys just because, I've been talking to so many people and I'm getting old, so I forget who the hell I talk to these days,
I'm Andrew. This is Jeff.
Nice to see you guys. Yeah. Anyway, I spoke to a quarterback coach that played the Chiefs this year, and I asked him about Spags, and the first thing out of his mouth was, and it was in a complimentary way, was, boy, he's a pain in the ass. And, because he does a lot of things. And I think he's open to doing a lot of things,
right? Depending
on how the game flow goes. Look, obviously they've had 2 weeks to prepare. So that means you're going in with a game plan.
Yeah.
But most good coaches, and this is not Spags' first rodeo, have 2 or 3 next game plans based on what happens.
Right.
If A is not working, you know what?
Sure.
When are we going to go to B? Now, by the way, that's always a hard question for coaches. And fans, sometimes I think fans don't quite get that. Because they say, why didn't he adjust? It's all, you go in, you spend all this time putting together a game plan based on so much film study. Because for a Super Bowl, teams bring in all their scouts. They bring everybody in the organization to break down things and do really detailed reports. So you're building your game plan based on all of that. So if it doesn't work in the first 10 plays, you don't necessarily say, okay, let's just throw that away. Right. We've just spent 2 weeks doing it.
Sure.
Sometimes things just don't work out exactly right, but it's really difficult if they're not working to know when do we move off that and go to, plan B?
Right. It's funny, everybody does it a little bit different.
Sure.
So someone says to you about Steve Spagnuolo's defense, man, is he a pain in the ass, right? Jonathan Gannon's had a very good defense this year.
Yeah.
He's done an excellent job. There's been criticisms. We know in general, he's done a very good job. They're here in the Super Bowl, but his defense is sort of this, while there are different things within it, he's running his defense week 1 through 17. I don't think anybody says that guy's defense is a pain in the ass because it's more of an execution style.
Correct.
Defense.
It's a little more static. Now, every defense has things in it that we don't know about, the way certain things are coached. You're playing zone. Where do you want your eyes? If you're playing quarters, let's say, it's a different responsibility for safety versus a 2-by-2 formation and a 3-by-1 formation. I mean, there's all these little things within every defense, but overall your point is correct. I don't think that generally we would say that Jonathan Gannon does so much stuff that it poses big problems for how a defense is going to game plan.
Right.
And there'll be some wrinkles and there'll be some probably specific wrinkles because of the Kelsey factor. But I think that it's more like what you said.
So let me ask you this. You talk about Jalen Hurts looking to take his shots. That's something we discussed. I think it was either yesterday or today. And if you're looking at it from his perspective, where would the deficiency lie on the back end for Kansas City? Would it be LJ Snead? I don't know that he runs particularly well. Can be a little bit grabby down the field.
My sense is, I think what you're going to get, if the Chiefs are in base, I think you're going to get Snead and McDuffie on the outside. I think when they're in nickel or dime, you're going to get Snead staying on the outside, McDuffie going inside, and Watson being the other outside corner. I think Watson would be someone they'd go after. Now, he's played well for a rookie.
Right.
And Watson was he a fourth round pick, I believe.
Was it? Yeah, fourth round.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he's played well. He's a big kid. But I think he'd be the guy that they feel they could go after. Snead's a pretty good player.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I think he has 3 sacks.
Yeah, well, that's when he's in the slot.
Right.
Yeah, which he's been mostly, but as later in the season, they kept him outside against some quality wideouts and they put McDuffie in the slot. And I think you'll see that in the Super Bowl.
All right, let me tell you guys about Sin City. You got to make it an Eagles win either way this Super Bowl Sunday at Sin City Cabaret on Pacheco Ave. Philly's premier hotspot will be giving away an incredible 65-inch LED 4K TV. Anyone and everyone who comes out for their $5 beers and 2-for-1 bottles is eligible to snatch it up. Claim the best seat in the house with the prettiest girls in town. It's a Super Bowl party like no other. And if you head over before halftime, admission is free. Sin City Cabaret, 6130 Pacheco Ave. It's a Philly thing. All right, Greg, there was a question that someone asked us that I thought I would pose to you guys. And we've talked about this a little bit, but I think this is even more detailed. The question is, will the Chiefs run more screens at Reddick's side? You don't necessarily have to throw a screen.
You mean as
opposed of the aggressive player,
right.
but I mean that's
Right.
usually what you do. Yeah.
I mean, I think you will see
I know
screens.
Avant thinks there are going to be a ton of screens.
Yeah, I mean, I think you will see screens. I think you'll see them early in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Andy will feel that I've got to slow down the pass rush. I got to give them something to think about.
Mhm.
They're a really good screen team. They get to it in multiple ways. And I think one thing you'll see, in my opinion anyway, is I think you'll see screens where they work the back across the formation to get the screen. In
Mhm.
other words, if he's offset to one side, the screen won't be to that side. He'll cross the formation.
Right.
And I think you'll see that.
And what does that do to the defense when they do
I
that?
think
What
that
would
makes
they
it
do?
a little harder to recognize.
Mhm.
Because how many times do we see screens where veteran linemen like a Hargrave, like a Fletcher Cox, will see the back and they will recognize a screen.
Yep.
So it just makes it a little harder to recognize. So I think screens will be, again, you're talking in terms of degrees. It's not like they're going to run 10 screens in their first 15 plays,
Right.
but you will see screens early.
Yeah. And you'll probably see some, I would think, from the Eagles. The tight end screen to Dallas Goedert earlier in the year
Yes.
was such a money play for them.
Absolutely.
He got hurt. It went away a little bit. And I don't even know if they felt like they needed to rely on it too much in the postseason or lately, but I feel like Sunday would be a pretty good day if they want to reprise it. That was a prolific play. It seemed to work.
You said it. It was a money play. He's tough to tackle. He's explosive, physical, and I think it would be a good, tone setter to start the game.
Yeah. They haven't really thrown that. I mean, Devonta Smith is usually the other guy. AJ Brown, for as big and
Yeah, they don't
sturdy
throw
as
a lot
he
of
is, they
screens to him. Yeah.
I thought that they were going to utilize that a lot
Yeah.
more, but so Greg, let me ask you this. Isaiah Pacheco, what was your assessment on him coming out of the draft?
I'm going to be totally honest. I did not get to him because he was one of the last guys and then the draft happened. So I didn't see him. I think he was a huge surprise at the combine when he ran a 4.37. I don't think anybody expected that. I would say Pacheco overall, if you're just evaluating the player, I'd say he's downhill, urgent, competitive, explosive. He's a little stiff. He's not loose hipped, but he is a finisher. He's naturally powerful. He's tough to bring down. He moves the pile. He fits their offense because it's not really an offense built on the running game per se.
Right.
They run at times, but it's not really built on the run game. But he's a sustaining type runner.
Mhm.
He's the kind of back that if it's blocked for 3, he gets you 6. And that's important, and he's really hard to bring down. I mean, he is a tough physical, sustaining runner.
Yeah.
You know, urgent is a word I use often when I'm evaluating backs like that. He's urgent, competitive. That's the kind of back he is.
Last question that came from our audience is it's about whether or not if the Chiefs decide to do a little man, throw some blitzing, who draws in their defense Devonta Smith?
It's a great question.
Well, normally they've not been a matchup
Right.
corner defense.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that would change.
Right.
You know, obviously with 2 weeks it could. But they normally have not had a quote unquote matchup corner where you got him.
All right. So if Devonta, who moves around but tends to be on the right side of the quarterback mostly,
Then it would be Watson.
then it would be Watson. How do
Yeah.
you like that matchup?
I mean, I think that Smith could, you know, again, you know, when you talk about these matchups, it's not like every single play he's going to win and
Right.
catch a pass,
Right.
you know, but I mean, I think Smith can win against Watson.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
Watson's a big kid.
Yeah.
Smith is a terrific route runner.
He really is.
He really is.
He's really coming into his own.
Yeah. So, you know, you would think that he could win that,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know, we'll see.
Here's an interesting question I just came up with in that conversation, and I know you got to get out. We'll get to
Another
that in a minute.
unintentional, brilliant.
And no, this one is not brilliant.
Okay.
But it is curious.
Okay.
If you're a franchise team, you have your pick of certain players, and on the board are AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Where are you taking?
I love this question.
See, now these are the questions I struggle to answer for this reason.
What scheme are you running?
they're different.
I know
They're different.
I know.
I mean, you know, you're dealing with one guy who's 6 feet, 220 pounds,
Right.
who a meaningful part of his game is physicality
Sure.
and is going to catch in breaking routes and be able to break tackles and run over people.
Right.
You're dealing with another guy that's silky smooth,
Mhm.
who is certainly physically tough for his size and highly competitive, but he's not necessarily going to run, you know, break those kinds of tackles and run over people.
Sure.
And I would say that he's a smoother, more refined route runner
Right.
than AJ Brown.
Right.
So I think they're different players.
Right.
You wouldn't say, you would have to decide what you want in your offense based on who the other receivers are.
Well, I was going to throw the caveat in that you have no receivers. This is
Oh.
your first choice of
Oh.
receivers, and those are the two on the board. Because I was trying to take away the context of, well, I've already got, you know, Justin Jefferson.
Right,
or so forth and so on. So,
Well,
I think just by
yeah.
what you're doing right now shows you how tough
It's
it's not an easy decision.
Yeah.
I think 6 games into the year, we would all have AJ Brown.
Right.
But Devonta, it just shows you how much he's developed
Yeah.
this year.
Hey, it's not as easy as a question as you would think.
Right.
Yeah. And then there was a time period, and it's
That's
nobody's
a good
fault.
question for Jason Avant.
We're going to ask him next. His fault. The offense was clicking on all cylinders, but there was a time period where Devonta just didn't have that many catches, and
Right.
and then a couple guys got hurt, and then he came into his prominence, and then it hasn't gone away though. It's not like when Dallas Goedert came back, Devonta slid underneath. Now it
Still
seems every game somebody else is just gonna have to be the guy.
You know,
in fact, in the playoffs, it's been AJ Brown who really hasn't caught that
No,
many balls.
and they haven't thrown a lot. And keep in mind, even during the season, when there were a lot of first halves, as we know, where the Eagles would throw, Hurts would throw 25 balls,
Right.
but then he'd end up with 35 balls because of what they do in the second half. So while this team throws early in games, they're not a passing team in the sense that they're just going to keep throwing and throwing and throwing. I mean, pretty much almost every week you see Mahomes with 40 plus attempts.
Yeah.
Now I don't have his numbers right in front of me. I know there's games he didn't, so I don't want people to say, "Oh no, he had 4 games." But I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
The Eagles are not just, hey, we're just going to keep throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing. They get ahead and then they run the ball.
Yes.
So there are games where volume target shares for certain receivers don't happen as much as other games.
Sure. Absolutely. All right.
know.
Good stuff. I'm gonna come to you on that in a minute.
Okay.
First, I know you have to go beat Greg Cosell for
Well,
other
yeah.
outlets, so we appreciate.
Or whatever else they want to call me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
did I call you anything else? Greg, because my name is Jeff, and people
Well, I get called a lot of names that are not really names.
not
So
stuff we can't say. On
yeah,
here.
exactly.
By-
Yeah.
Us, by the way.
There you go. There you go.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Greg.
We'll see you on Sunday.
All
Really
right.
appreciate
All
it.
right.
Take
Thanks.
care. The great Greg Cosell, who has just become an integral part of what we do at Inside the Birds. One of the best. I don't know too many people who have not played the game, coached in the game, or scouted in the game that know as much about football as
Yeah.
Greg does.
Just a fountain of knowledge.
I mean, you see him walk around. I mean, every person that you've seen play football, coach football, stops by, they talk to him, they dap him up, like they have the ultimate respect for his knowledge there.
Absolutely. There's something to be said for that.
That's true. So what do you think? If you're a GM,
Oh,
who are you
boy.
taking?
So, and I think you and me sort of alluded to this earlier, and probably Monday or Tuesday, whatever day it is. But I think I will lean Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
And the reason being is I think he's a 3-level player. He's smooth. He's a refined route runner. There's not many things he can't do. We've seen him play big man football where he's going up and taking the football away. So that's not a question. He's aggressive at the catch point where he needs to be. He's actually a really sound blocker, Jeff, and I think he's actually. I think you could actually say he's a little bit better of a blocker in some cases than AJ, because I feel like he approaches it with a mentality where he has a chip on his shoulder.
He approaches it as if he played at Alabama for Nick Saban, and he has to.
You have to. So, with all that being said, we talk about that 29-yard catch that wasn't to be in that game. And like I told you, he's the only Eagles receiver that makes that catch. So when you look at it like that, you want a player that's going to come up with every single catch, and he's the guy that's going to do it.
The fantastic thing about him and AJ Brown is that they're both great and in different ways. It's really unique. I mean, you think about the Miami Dolphins, right? And anybody would take that wide receiver situation. I'm not making a hierarchy here. I'm just making an observation, a comparison. But Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, it's like watching clones. They do the same things, and they both do it extraordinarily well. That it's really impressive. Whereas when you watch the Eagles, you see that Devonta Smith and AJ Brown almost have these complementary skill sets. I don't think Devonta has the late hands that AJ has. I don't think he has the ability to kind of break out of 2 tackles, even though he's actually plays bigger than his size, the way AJ has. But then AJ, as usual, is a little less reliable. I mean, he'll drop more passes than Devonta.
He also struggles with soft tissue injuries in the past.
Been injured, right? And then, of course, you just mentioned the blocking, where sometimes you get a really good block at AJ Brown. Sometimes you wonder what happened.
Right.
So
for as big as he is, you would think it would be a little bit more, kind of just wall him off effortlessly.
Absolutely. All right, man. This has been an awesome time here on hour 2 of Inside the Birds live from Radio Row. I saw Jason Avant hopping around here. If he wants to come on with us, he certainly can. We can keep asking him questions. I think I got a yes out of that. So we'll bring Jay in, because we have to talk about this wide receiver and this screen game thing with Jay, because I know he's been talking about it for quite a bit, and we can really get into the tactical side of it with Jason Avant, who was always involved in screens, usually the up guy, trying to make the block, so that fast guys like Deshaun can scuttle through and do their thing. So we will get that. And then if we have a chance to get Donovan McNabb, we're still efforting it. He's been running around. I don't know if our window closed on that. I mean, he was right here.
Yeah, but
and then Andy Reid's clone. Did you see Andy Reid's clone? I did. Grab that mic, brother.
I did see Andy Reid's clone down there next to us.
Did you see me get faked out by Andy Reid's clone?
Oh, why would you get faked out?
So
he said it's Andy Reid. I said that's not Andy Reid.
I'll explain. We're in the middle of a live stream, like we are now. Say hi to everybody.
Hey, how's everyone doing? I'm gonna take my hat off
so
you can see the shinage.
Look at that gleam.
Yeah, gleam.
So I'm doing the live stream. I got someone. Was it you on my right? Or were you?
I was to your left.
Okay, he's on my left. Someone's on my right. We're talking. Blah, 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 blah. And so in the peripheral vision, I see something that looks like Big Red, right? And the man looks exactly like him.
He looks just like him.
And yes, I'm aware of the impersonator, but at that moment, I'm not thinking that. I went like this, Jay. I said, I just, while I was talking, I go like that. Just because he was looking at me, and in a very Andy Reid way, he did the same. He went, like that. And I'm like, oh. And as soon as he did that, I say, I just got punked.
That's pretty funny.
The guys were laughing at me.
I was like in the middle. I was like in the middle of answering something. I look over. So who's Jeff pointing there? He's like, "That's Andy Reid." I said, "That's not Andy Reid."
That's not Andy Reid.
I said, he wouldn't be on Radio Row on Friday before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All those logical and rational thoughts entered my mind the second that he pointed back at me, and then I realized it wasn't real Andy Reid. All of those things. I don't know why it couldn't happen a second before I pointed at him. Like, knew him.
This would be the last place he would be right now.
Yes, it really would be. It really would be. When you look at him, though, you got to be like, wow.
He looks, the stash is perfect.
He walks with a limp, too.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, he got the little limp walk. Yeah, it's crazy. There's money to be made in impersonations. That's crazy.
Oh, it is.
You got the fake Drake. You got the fake Andy. He got
Wait,
a
there's a
bunch.
fake Drake here?
Not here today, but he has a fake guy that charges like 10 to 15 grand an appearance.
Wow.
Do you think I could come off as a fake The Rock? Like,
Listen, you need some more muscles though.
I
You
know.
got some tattoos.
I know.
You need
Yeah.
some Polynesian art.
Listen, we all know I can't. The only way I can do that is if you buy something artificial and you put it in. When I was a kid, though, there was a Rock, a little Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
That's why those weren't. I was all right with that.
There you go.
I wish I had their bank accounts, but
That would be wonderful.
or their prominence, it would be. Anybody ever confuse you with anybody?
See, look.
I don't feel like you have a
Here,
doppelganger.
here's the thing. There's a bunch of bald head black men with goatees, and they're famous. It's a bunch of them. So yes, I get confused with a bunch. It's usually Ocho Cinco, Morris Chestnut,
I
Tate
can see
Diggs.
Chestnut. I don't see
It's a bunch of stuff when I go through the airport.
What about you?
It's crazy.
You got a doppelganger?
Believe it or not, I mean, you look at my Twitter photo. I've gotten Drake before. I've gotten Michael Kendricks before. Believe it or not. Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. This is like probably a few years.
There's some blind folks that
Actually, because I've got this recently and I don't get it at all. But a few people have looked at me and thought I bear a little bit of resemblance to Nick Sirianni. I don't know where they get that. I'm telling you, more than 3 people have said this to me.
Yeah, I don't get
That's
that
crazy.
either. I don't know. I don't know what the perception is, but I guess it's maybe you look like that to some people. I don't know. Not
Maybe
to
I
me.
babble. Maybe I just
I don't
talk
think
too
that.
much, and then people are like, "Hey, it's kind of like
it could be
Sirianni."
it could be a facial expression, anything that reminds people.
Maybe. All right. We were talking about the screen game, and I know that you are bullish on the fact that you think you're going to see a lot of screens from the Chiefs, right, to neutralize the Eagles' pass rush.
Yes, I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the game plan. You have to have a answer because you can't go out and like Kansas, like the San Francisco 49ers and say, hey, we're going to do what we do normally and start to block defensive ends, and they're going to slow them. They're going to slow down because of all of our misdirection and all of these things. Like you can't go in the game plan thinking that these guys aren't special.
True.
Which I don't think that San Francisco thought that our guys were special.
All right. Well, all right.
All right.
I want to ask you this.
So
Wait,
go ahead.
because if I don't, I'll forget. So I will get back to you on the screen.
Okay.
But let's talk about the play you're referring to. The play action pass that never was because Hassan Reddick beat the backup tight end Croft.
Yeah.
And so on that play, right, Deebo Samuel is running orbit motion behind the quarterback.
Yes.
Ordinarily, that would be the backside edge defender's responsibility, right?
Yes.
Hassan Reddick in that case.
Yes.
Hassan either didn't take the cheese or was so fast to the quarterback that he blew it up from the start. But if that ball gets pitched to Deebo, isn't Hassan Reddick getting scolded on the sideline for not keeping backside contained?
He probably is. But what I'm saying is you can't leave it, especially early in the game, you can't leave it that this guy should honor the fake backside, right? You have to block him with the person that's getting paid to block him.
Right.
This guy's making more than $15 million a year to sack quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So you respect him as such. And I'm not talking about just that play.
Right.
2 plays before that, they blocked him one-on-one on a run play with Juszczyk.
Yes.
A play after that, they blocked him with Kittle and Juwan Jennings, right? So it was a mentality thing that these guys are just okay. We can block them with our subpar blockers, and we expect for it to work. Sure. So what I'm saying is that I think the Chiefs are going to give them that respect and know that these guys get home, and they're going to try to keep them honest by giving a reverse, by giving the screen, by doing misdirection things at the beginning to slow them down. That's the way that you respect the defense. I think that's one part of it.
Now, is it a Travis Kelce? Who is their screen weapon that concerns you?
They have a bunch of them, but Travis Kelce is a big threat for screens.
Yeah.
He's just as good as any receiver in the league after the catch when it comes to a screen.
Kadarius Toney?
Yeah, Kadarius Toney could be a screen guy.
Kelsey's way more, I think, explosive than or more dangerous.
Yeah.
He'll break some tackles.
Right.
Kadarius Toney might break himself if he tries to get through his
and we'll see if he even plays this week. But
right.
Well, here's what makes Kelce different from Kadarius Toney. There's like big red flags when you see Kadarius Toney's in a screen position. There's no red flag when you see Kelce in a position because that's where he is normally.
Good point.
Right. So therefore, there's not many indicators because he can line up on the ball, step off the ball, and catch the screen and be fine. So it becomes dangerous. And then you got Jet, you got McKinnon, you got that guy is a nightmare with the football in his hands. He has 9 receiving touchdowns.
Right.
So there's a bunch of guys you can screen to. Pacheco, the South Jersey kid, runs really hard as well.
Not to be confused with the Checo,
Yeah.
the Downingtown kid.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the screen game that we were talking about with Greg. I
Yeah.
wanted to get Jason's take on.
Yeah, because we thought, I think my favorite play I've seen the Eagles run this year is the tight end screen. I know how excited you are about the Dallas Goedert screens earlier in the year, getting skinny through the hole, doing his thing. Then he hurt his shoulder
On the screen.
on the screen. and since he's come back, they really haven't gone to that well very much. And I feel like they shouldn't go away from it because it was a really good play. And this Chiefs front seven can be very aggressive too and good. So maybe this is, Sunday's a good opportunity to bring it back.
Dallas is probably, I don't know, maybe the second or third best player on our team with the ball in his hand.
Yeah.
As from a tight end position.
Sure.
Like besides AJ Brown, like on the screen, I wouldn't trust anybody else more than him.
Right.
So I believe that it's definitely an element that has to come back into the game plan, that should come back in the game plan. Yes, it was a fluke accident that he gets hurt. If he stiff arms and understands where people are in space in that situation, he doesn't get hurt, right? But he didn't recognize the moment and where he was in space.
Right.
There, he didn't have much space. He thought he was open, so he got tackled like there weren't many people around him. And that's a learning mistake that he'll correct. But that's something that definitely could advance this offense and lead them to winning the Super Bowl. The more he touches the ball is a good thing. Dallas is a special player with the ball in his hand.
Yeah.
He averages more yards after the catch than most of our receivers.
Yeah, that's right. Someone asked a great question we were talking about. It was who's got a better chance to succeed? It was the Chiefs linebackers against the Eagles running game or Eagles linebackers against the Chiefs passing game.
Who has the better?
Who has the better chance to succeed?
The Chiefs running backs versus the Chiefs linebackers?
No, Chiefs linebackers versus Eagles running game, or Eagles linebackers versus Chiefs passing game.
Oh,
made my brain hurt too, but it is a good question.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that there's. I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly, but I don't think that our linebackers are built to stop Travis Kelce. So I think that's null and void. So I would say that the Chiefs linebackers will have a better chance to stop our running backs.
Yeah,
based on the opposite.
Sure. No,
not saying that they will.
Well,
but for the question's purpose,
I agree with you. I think the point I brought up is if the Eagles decide to play a lot of 5-1 fronts, where TJ is because they want to bring CJ in the slot against Travis, but still keep Maddox on the field, then Kaiser White has to come off, and you're a 5-1 front with TJ Edwards as your only linebacker. Okay. What happens when Andy decides, okay, well, I'm going to run out of this passing formation against that. And if I can get a guy to the second level, all I have to worry about is TJ. That's a tough responsibility for TJ.
Yeah.
And then even if he still passes, you're the only linebacker in that intermediate level, and you got to worry about Kelce. You got to worry about Tony maybe taking one over the edge or something like that. You have so many keys that you're going to have to be focused in on.
Yeah. But the thing is, very rarely does team succeed in that. Just from this year, since Linval offenses, yes, right. Linval and Sue came because they're able to control the line of scrimmage, and therefore it's not as line. I know, but it is a better offensive line. But what I'm saying is, it's very, very hard to get up to the second level against the team. It is. It's a hard thing to do.
It used to be easier, but you're right. Since they added Linval, so they've changed things around. It's been more difficult. But I've always wondered, is that because it's either a bad line or a bad offense, or is it because they are doing something much better by just having Linval Joseph on the field?
Yeah. I think that I think it's the years of experience.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Linval Joseph is a big difference than Jordan Davis on the field.
Gotcha.
Really big difference.
Absolutely.
Yes. They have a long way to go with Jordan Davis, but that is a discussion
for another day.
not for hour 2 or hour 3 of Inside the Birds. So hour 4, that's a discussion for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Combine, free agency, draft.
Yeah,
I love that time of the year.
It's a lot. It's just a lot going on. The NFL is all year round, man. In order for you to be invested and be good at this, you got to be all year round for everyone.
And guess what happens
for writers, for columnists, everyone.
Guess what happens 3 days after Super Bowl Sunday?
Free agency. What was
Pitchers and catchers report to
Oh,
Clearwater,
shoot.
baby.
No, because free agency is March. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
combine
I don't
coming
really
up.
care about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, listen, I know you don't. I know you don't. But some of us still love baseball. Right?
America's pastime, right?
Yeah. Are you happy with how the Sixers are playing? You're a big basketball guy?
They're playing better, but the NBA bothers me from this standpoint.
Mhm.
The NBA has created a system because of the luxury tax where you can put Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Ayton, Chris Paul, all of these guys on one team. That pisses me off
The super
because
team.
the super teams, because parity is what makes the NFL so great.
Right.
The team that's finished last this year, the Texans, they have talent. You get them in the right situation with the right pick, they can be in the playoffs next year.
Right.
Right. And that's what you love about it. I don't like that many times, especially over this last 10, 15 years in the NBA, that you kind of know that there's only 2 or 3 teams with a chance to win.
So
that bothers
you
me.
grew up a Chicago Bulls fan.
Yeah.
And you have the audacity.
Hold on.
Because when Dennis Rodman came to the Bulls and they already had Pippen and Jordan, I didn't hear any complaining about how the system.
Let's get this going. So Pippen and Jordan were drafted.
They were
to the Bulls. A lot of these players drafted to the Bulls. Horace Grant, the first 3. Let's talk about Rodman.
Okay.
Everybody on the first 3 championships were drafted players pretty much for the Bulls.
Sure.
Right? The last 3 you bring in Rodman, a rebounder.
Well, don't be like he was nothing. He was
I'm just saying,
amazing rebounder and defender in the game.
Yeah.
Who would occasionally
but that wasn't a super team. That was a team that was built through the draft, like the Golden State Warriors' first championship.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, then the Warriors get that super team label, but 3 of their 4 players, until they got KD, were built through the draft.
But KD is a whole different dynamic. KD is literally the.
I know, but they won before KD.
I'm saying it's
how they built that team.
No,
right?
I don't.
Tell me what I'm missing, people.
No. I respect the first part of the team. The KD portion, I don't.
But how is that's like saying I respect the first 3 champions from the Bulls, but when they brought in Rodman, I can't because they didn't. Rodman is not on the same level as a KD as far as a player. No, he's not. But
as far as
he was exactly what they needed, and he was a superstar for what he did.
What I'm saying is that there was not much. The Bulls replace Horace Grant with the equal level Horace Grant. Actually, a worse scoring Horace Grant.
Oh, but a way better rebounder and defender.
But it was a worse scoring. Like Rodman's no points. Horace Grant's going to get you 18 points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I still think you're downplaying how good Rodman was, but I will admit you did have to deal with Rodman just leaving the team in the middle of the playoffs.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that basketball parity should be. And here's for people that I think this is great strategy, right? Great strategy. So only 2 things you can do: make a hard salary cap. That's one. Make a hard salary cap, no luxury tax, no going over, none of that stuff, right? The other thing too is that you rank players. And you only allow, 2 players on each team in the top 50, and then you go on from there. 2 players from this portion, and then the last. I think that should be a thing.
That's
in order to keep
the best thing for the league.
Yeah,
but you run into all sorts of free market issues when you're doing that. I mean,
you may.
I get it.
All I'm saying is that I'm not saying that they don't get paid. You can pay them whatever you want to pay them. I'm just saying far as player ranking,
right?
That you only have this amount of players on each team, and therefore you can eliminate this trash of basketball we have.
The flaw in that theory, though, when you start ranking the players and putting them in tiers, does that change year to year, or how do you separate player once you get past the top 15 players in the league? You get a sort of a mishmash of guys where you got to compare a 3-and-D guy to a point guard to a center. I mean, it becomes
it's hard
on how to rank.
I'm listening to this conversation.
It is a good conversation. Unfortunately, it's got to come to an end now. So we will be back for hour 3 in just a little bit, and we're going to try to get a few more of those guests. I'm really hoping that Takeo Spikes will be on with us soon, maybe hour 3 or hour 4. You were on the team when Takeo Spikes came, right?
That's a good friend of mine. Yeah, support him, do everything that I can to support his podcast, his books, and everything. Yeah, I talk to him a lot. Yeah,
all right. I think that's why he agreed to come on. Is he didn't remember me, but he was like, "Oh yeah, Jason Avant, and Michael." I'm like, "Oh well, yeah, they're on. They do a show with us." So he said, "Oh okay, I'll come by."
Yeah, come
hopefully we'll
check
get
him
to
out.
Geo Spikes.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to do it, of course, for hour 3 of Inside the Birds Live from Radio Row, presented to
two.
you. I'm sorry, hour 2. We look forward to hour 3, but this was hour 2, presented by Sin City, Philadelphia, and we will be back in a little bit. Andrew Pacheco, Jason Avant, Geoff Mosher, back for hour 3 pretty soon.